Okay, Attorney Rick Blancaflor of also the Intellectual Property Office. And how long have you been with the IPO Philippines, sir?
February of last year.
Oh, just last year. But as a lawyer, have you always been engaged in these kinds of issues? Or what is your formal sort of experience and training coming into the IPO?
Well, IP is really a very relatively new field.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the law is only 12 years old.
Right.
Just turned 13 years old. And there's very limited practice. My background includes law enforcement and national defense.
I see. So you're coming in really from law enforcement in general and national defense. Were you connected in any way, attorney?
Yes, I was
Of course, to the DND.
DND, DOJ.
DOJ, of course. So you've really had extensive, in this sense, government and bureaucracy-related engagements.
I'm entering my 19th year.
Wow. So you didn't break it with private practice? You didn't break it?
I started with private practice, and then I started in the Senate, and then all
That's
the way.
right. Okay. I just wanted to be sure. I didn't want to get your CV all mixed up here just by assumption. Of course, you sent me an email, so I more or less had the idea. But welcome again to this morning's discussion. And we'll get back to what Attorney Sarah was saying earlier, Director General. And then before that, we'll get to the reports from Charlie on traffic and weather and get back to this very, very fascinating gray, amorphous, ambiguous area of intellectual property and infringement issues. Okay, Charlie, come in. Okay, folks, we're back. Well, very interesting here. Thank you very much from the BBC for our international front there. You're still on RJ 810 AM, the voice of the Philippines, real-time news all the time. Earlier, we were speaking with Attorney Sara Sugitan, and now, of course, joined by the Director General himself of the IPO Philippines, the Intellectual Property Office. Formerly, it was called the Bureau of Patents until about 12 years ago with Republic Act 8293, about 12, 13 years ago. This was really in line with strengthening intellectual property as a field or as a domain for not only legal and judicial action, but also really in terms of protecting creative output and the kind of ownership and claims of people who, for lack of a better word, originally created something out of, well, maybe nothing, but something original out of a lot of other things. Because no one really starts from scratch. Everyone is a product, of course, of influences and data information all around them, especially now with the access to the World Wide Web and the internet. But Attorney Rick Blancaflor, you were saying earlier, because I was asking Attorney Sugitan earlier, for instance, this whole thing about, as a teacher myself, as a professor, I really wonder where my lines should be drawn, my boundaries, when material, not only lifted out of the web or Googled, but especially hard copies of books or essays, journals, and then reproduced voluminously or endlessly. What is the IPO to say of that? And you're saying earlier that even in cases of plagiarism, in cases of non-attribution, or even with malice, so-called, attributing something not originally your own, authorially, as an author, that you don't really have police powers for that anyway, and that's a gray area. Is that correct? Or what how are we to look at all of these? And then what? I'm supposed to not tell my students now, or any teacher tells na hindi pwedeng mag-reproduce nito at ganyan kasi bawal ba talaga yan?
That's correct, and a lot more.
Okay. What is the a lot more? Director General.
Let me
Nakakatakot na yan ngayon all campuses. I mean, for the benefit of our listeners, I mean, this is really very new. It's a largely uncharted territory, isn't it correct? I mean, intellectual, in this country at least. I mean, it's not as established,
I think the academe is very familiar with IP.
but trade, industry,
But not
inventions, innovations.
that's correct. The other stakeholders, the other users are not familiar.
Uh-huh.
And so we really welcome this opportunity to
Please.
spread the message. When
Please
it comes to publication,
Yes.
we start with books. I think that's the concern that you're trying to
Yes,
raise.
yes.
The general rule is they're protected by copyright. So once a person or an entity is given a copyright, nobody can infringe on that right. Now, what if his book is Xeroxed? I can't even use the word Xerox. Reproduced
Right.
and sold commercially. Is that banned by the law? Yes, definitely it's banned by the law.
It falls under 8293 Republic Act, or
yes,
is it really?
that's purely infringement. Now the problem is, IP right is still a private right in this country. It's not a public right. It's a private right.
What does that mean exactly?
That means you need the owner to formally complain. My right has been violated.
So you want to, as a private citizen, as a private person, individual, you're being an author, being an artist, kinopia, ginaya, in-infringe, kailangan maging public by bringing it into a legal process, a legal battle.
That's correct.
So litigation.
Yes. Unfortunately, no author can do that all over the world.
Yes.
So
Or even
it's-
here, like what? You go to every campus there is, from UP to La Salle.
that should be the job of his publisher. Now, this is our problem. Many of our publishers here are either connected with the US or the European Association of Publishers,
Okay.
and they cannot initiate court action without the go signal of these publishers.
Why? I mean, you mean our Filipino publishers don't have something?
Their
equivalent?
licenses? Yes, that's correct.
Why?
I don't know.
Really?
I was so surprised because let me give you an actual case.
Okay.
We got an email complaint in Cebu from a citizen saying that certain Korean schools were using
in Cebu, Korean established. I mean, run by Korean
language schools.
Language schools.
Were using books copied from an American translation books. And we investigated the case, and true enough, there was validity in the complaint, and we decided to raid the place. But for us to raid the place, we have to get a search warrant.
Right.
For us to get a search warrant, we need the complainant.
Okay. And so, what did the complainant do? I mean,
I still have to see the affidavit of complaint.
Oh, so you could not raid.
We could not raid. So it takes two. We need
Yeah.
also the support now. But then again, let me state this in a broader term. It's a fine art of balancing the interests of a nation and the rights of the individuals. The rights of individuals include copyright.
Okay.
The rights of the nation is to a more educated population.
Yes.
So when do you draw the line?
Yeah.
When does
Knowledge is supposed to be shared anyway.
yes?
I
So
mean, shared in the sense that anyone can have access beyond just, reading the books that are authorized to be published, or right, that you can actually reproduce, because
Well-
that's supposed to be shared. You can download, upload.
stated differently, when does the right of the public end when the right of the individual author begins?
Yeah.
For example, would authors start to be more creative if they know that anybody can copy their work?
Right.
Obviously, the answer is no.
No, right.
So there has to be a certain level where we have to make that distinction. Now, the Philippines wrote WIPO, that's the head of the
Right. In Geneva.
in Geneva,
The World Intellectual Property Office.
and also the we try to get some concessions, meaning that as a developing country, we should be given some
Right.
kind of leeway,
Right.
and
right.
that has already been part of our practice. That is why there's a lot of ambiguity when it comes to copying,
Yes.
because after all, we're given this kind of social responsibility to also educate the public.
Yes.
But if we have an actual complaint and it's filed with our office, we have no recourse but to proceed with the litigation.
Okay, but you're saying, Director General, that the IPO Philippines, the office precisely, mandated to oversee such not only complaints but such real the situations where some resolution has to be reached. You're saying though that this can only be done as in terms of its investigating and in fact also calling attention to those supposedly infringing or those being aggrieved, but you're not able to enforce.
That's correct.
And because you're not able to enforce, are you saying that balancing act that you're saying between the public and the private good becomes still really in a sense an unreachable, or are you saying it becomes ineffective?
It becomes difficult. It doesn't become impossible. It becomes difficult.
Okay, but you need to balance the good of the nation, as you called it, with the private individual's right to his creativity and to his initiative to keep creating.
Yes.
Right? To keep writing, to keep composing, to keep inventing, and yet to the public good that needs these for society's good, the knowledge pool, so-called. But you need a balance that you can strike. The office has to strike here. But without enforcement, you will not reach that balance. Is that fair to say? You need enforcement.
It will take us
policing powers.
That's correct. Another 10 years to reach that balance.
So we are in an imbalance here.
No, not really, because we've already filed a bill with both the House and the Senate.
Yeah, but that's still, until it becomes really a Republic Act again, we are still in a situation, would you not agree, where people can really get away with things like plagiarism, reproducing, voluminous, endless copies in different campuses. Walang habol dyan di ba?
Meron pa. Hindi pa tapos.
Hindi pa
So,
tapos.
aside from the legislative effort, we also have the executive effort. We've also written Malacanang to give us task force powers.
When you have task force powers, what are the limits or the parameters for that?
Meaning we can get agents from the law enforcement agencies who have the police powers.
And you know more than a thing or two about that, sir. Because
Yes.
you and can you tell us more about what can be done when you have that kind of enforcing powers?
Okay. What is so important with enforcement? It's not enforcement in itself. It's the fact that you can tell the rest of the world, register with us, we can enforce your right. Sign up with us, we can protect your rights. This is the whole point of the exercise. Now, if they register with us and we cannot protect their rights, you might as well not register with us.
Right.
And that goes through, let me get another thing on board, and this is something close to your heart,
Yes.
the degree advocacy.
Yes. Absolutely.
We haven't touched TK in this country. Traditional knowledge, herbal medicine.
Yes.
The
Alternative.
we haven't
sources.
taken advantage of the biodiversity of our country,
Absolutely.
and we're so rich there.
Absolutely.
And we're not only talking about the trees and
herbs, the
earth.
plants, yeah.
We're talking about human creation. We're talking about designs,
indigenous knowledge,
Indigenous knowledge.
cultural
which
dividends.
are now by being copied by resourceful foreigners.
Right.
Now, so we need police powers to protect our own tribes, to
Right.
protect, to be more aggressive with letting people know that,
Right.
look, guys, let's register what you know.
Right.
Things that that's what been for the last 300 years,
Yes.
we haven't even registered.
So, for example, Director General and Attorney Sarah, you mean like an indigenous Manobo tribe or a Bukidnon? I'm from Mindanao. They have to know that this is possible, and this is possible that they could actually bring, for instance, the way they weave, the way they, and so many bio prospectors is what they call these other interests, many foreign who come in and suddenly see that there's a orchid or a plant that is a cure for something. Di ba dapat tayo una dyan? Dapat una yung indigenous community dyan. Dapat una yung tribo na sila naman may alam na yun yung gamot para sa isang ailment. Ganun yun, di ba?
We're doing more than that.
Oh.
Before the end of this quarter, we're gonna set up an office in Cagayan de Oro.
Oh, perfect.